Welcome, everyone, to the SnapCast podcast with your hosts, Brad O'Brien and Mike Cooley. Cheers to you, people, for episode 71 of this beautiful podcast.
If you've made it with us this long, you deserve a drink.
You sure do. So thanks so much for joining us this week. We always have fun chatting with you guys and chatting about some Magic cards. And if this is your first time ever joining us and you're wondering what the hell you landed on in the far corners of the internet, this is a Magic the Gathering podcast where we talk about Magic and Magic-related things. We're
propane and propane accessories.
Yes. We talk about Magic and Magic accessories and spoilers. That's what we do.
Oh, what's our audience, Mike?
Anybody.
Well,
Like, it's probably a family show, right?
It's not a family show. Don't let them fool you. It's not a family show. But if you're a casual player with a competitive interest in MTG finance, hopefully we are the right podcast for you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely the people that we are geared towards, hopefully equipping with the random knowledge that we have. So
we haven't let the music go in a while.
I know, man. I like this. This is cool. Just funny story about this. In case you guys didn't know, I feel like we talked about this when we first started casting, but then it just kind of is overlooked each week. Brad and his band from the past.
That's right, my time traveling band.
Yes, the time traveling band actually did this song right here. Like they put this together. This is an original right here. This isn't even like the copyright free stuff that you can find on YouTube. It's like legit. Like he actually did this. It's really good, man. He's jamming on the.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, this was some great players from Rhode Island. They came up to do a studio session for the weekend. Now we get into the weird, wacky guitar solo. So we'll fade that out. Tech4 says in the chat that he's here, so we can start.
All right. Welcome, Tech4. Welcome to the show.
So one thing that we're going to do this week that we didn't do last week is this week we're not going to cast live from Twitter because Twitter's unreliable, and I need all the help and reliability that I can get.
Dude, what was it? There was some shit that went down. It was like everybody, whenever something gets spoiled on Twitter, they all have something to say. Yep. And it's like whenever someone says something ridiculous and off the wall, it gets tweeted and replied and retweeted and all of this shit. And I feel like we fell into the machine last week, and it was about basically cards being printed as box toppers not being legal in the actual set in Modern.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
And that was me. That was my claim or whatever, that what I thought I had heard when we listened to some of the live stream, and then Twitter was, oh, this is a card. It's just a box topper. It's not in the set. And so talking specifically about Sanctum Pellet, that is a legal card in Modern now.
Yeah.
The other card that we didn't catch in all of that hype stream last week is Counterspell is going to be legal in Modern.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, I think we touched on that. Picard brought it up midstream.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
and
right.
said, yeah, Counterspell is going to be legal. Yeah, which is insane. I say, like, whatever, good.
Right. Do you think that it actually changes anything?
Probably not. If I'm being honest, in a format like Modern, there's probably better Counterspells.
Here's my theory. Here's why Counterspell being legal in Modern is awesome. You want a quick off the cuff snap this up? Buy friggin' blue cards, and then next week sell blue cards. And then the week after, when everybody realizes that Counterspell doesn't actually make blue-white control phenomenal in Modern,
right?
All of those prices can come crashing back down. But everybody and their brother, and this also goes along with something else that we have on the agenda today, with paper play returning. We called it months ago that it would be by this summer, and May 28th is this summer.
Nailed it. You heard it here first, people of the SnapCast podcast. Yeah, I'm happy to see it come back. Like, you can kind of feel it. You can feel everything opening back up, people returning places and everything. So I think there's a big opportunity, man. There's a big opportunity for buying cards and for selling them. Archmage's Charm already doubled. Yeah, that's it doesn't surprise me. I don't think it will stay that way. I think it will probably go back down to some reasonable price.
Well, and that's what I think with Archmage's Charm doubling. That's a low supply card. Like there's a billion counterspells out there. You can get counterspell dirt cheap.
Yeah.
But if blue control or blue-white control is actually a hyper playable deck for at least the first few weeks of paper play again, yeah, I think you're right. Archmage's Charm, that's been a powerful card. Modern Horizons has been out for a couple of years now. So I'm not surprised that doubled. It's not going to retract down 50%.
No. I think, inherently having Counterspell there is great in it. It's a great card. It's going to bring up the value of it. But if you look at some of the formats where Counterspell was like legal and the extent of what it was used in, like Legacy, when you finally, when you have access to Force of Will and shit, like we basically have that in Modern now, right? For all intents and purposes. Not only do we have the knockoff Force of Will in Force of Negation, in Pact of Negation now, but we also have Force of Negation. It's like, we've got some tools, and it's like Tech 4 said, they don't really need a 2-mana counterspell. They need card advantage. And it could very well be that Archmage's Charm is going up just because they want to play that deck and they don't really need a 2-mana counterspell. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
I'll tell you what, I hate Archmage's Charm with a passion just because when the blue-white control player or, the control player in general says, okay, you played Aether Vial on 1, you missed your 3rd land drop. Archmage's Charm, take your Aether Vial. Ugh.
Yeah.
Or, path your Thalia, path whatever, steal your 5/5 Champion of the Parish.
Yikes.
Oof.
Yikes.
Oof. Again, just looking at it from the human's perspective. But speaking of the human's perspective, Sanctum Prelate's legal in Modern, does it actually get a spot in Modern Humans? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does. I think, that's insane. It's a good point from Tech 4. I meant to get there. My thought process just dropped midway through my sentence, which if you've known me for 71 episodes, that's pretty common. But you're right. Like in Legacy, it was used. It was used in Miracles, but it was never a 4 of.
Counterspell?
Yeah. We're talking about Counterspell here. It was never a 4 of. In a lot of decks, it was a 1 of. You know what I mean? But it was still valuable. It's still a good card. It showed up in Legacy, but it's a good point from Tech 4. So what decks in Modern does it really make better? Right? Not many.
Well, that's it. Like everything is so early and so cheap. You've got Remand, you've got Logic Knot, and you've got Mana Leak.
Well, they're playing Counterspell over Logic Knot any day.
But, you think so?
Yeah. Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, at this point. But I guess what I'm getting at is they've already got an effective 2-ish mana counterspell.
It's already been there, right?
That's been there, and blue-white is not running the format.
Right. But speaking of white, I see where you were going with this Sanctum Prelate. Dude, I love it in Humans. I think it pushes Humans over the top. Like, Humans didn't need another bomb, like another 3-drop, 2 or 3-drop to land and to absolutely discourage its opponents. And I feel like Sanctum Prelate just does that. Like if you go like turn 1 dork and then you're just like turn 2 fucking Vial and Freebooter.
Yeah.
And then turn 3, you just literally wreck everything I can do. You're just like, okay, you've already taken the card with Freebooter. You call something with Meddling Mage.
Took the 2-drop with Freebooter.
And then you call something, some number that shuts down everything else with Prelate. And it's like, okay, so you've effectively got a softlock on the game. Like, almost legitimate softlock at turn 3. It's kind of ridiculous.
What? So, in effect, Humans has had like 2 flex slots for years. And it has changed. It's been General Kudro or it's been Militia Bugler. It's been a bunch of 3-drops. So it may just be that Sanctum Pellet becomes the. Do you make it a 3 of, and use the 2 flex slots, and then what most people cut, and I've never agreed with this, is that they cut the 4th Thalia Guardian of Thraben to get a 3rd flex spot. So instead of playing the playset, they play 3 because you don't want a legend screw yourself. I get it.
Yeah.
It's always been such a good card in Modern to slow your opponent down. Or it says, this must eat a bolt that costs 2 mana before you play Mana Strider.
Yeah.
So I could see it as a 2 or 3 of, and maybe you put Kudro in the board for Dredge or specific graveyard matchups. It does host stuff, but I feel like all this is going to do is the Day of Judgment Wrath of God thing where control decks play a split of Day of Judgment and Wrath of God because they don't want to get Meddling Mage screwed.
Right.
They're going to bring in more 2-drop removals so that against John, they're like, okay, you can name 1 and you get my push and my bolts, but I'm still gonna have Abrupt Decay or something else. So it's Assassin's Trophy.
Can we bring up Sanctum Pellet? It's non-creature spells, is what it is. They can't play non-creature spells with that.
Can't play spells, I think.
Non-creature spells with mana value equal to the chosen number can't be cast. So it is. So non-creatures. So they shut down. Yeah, basically a lot of removal. Yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, but it's like Tech Forces shuts down Storm too. I just think that. Can you name me a deck right now? A competitive deck in Modern. Even the aggro ones. That don't run non-creature spells. And I don't mean just like a couple. I mean a significant amount.
Humans. Of course, we're like 14th down the meta. But elves?
Yeah, I should say like an other deck, right? Like if you're, you know what I mean? Because I'm assuming this would be on humans.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, okay, elves, but like still, just call 4, right? Like
get the collected company off the table.
Yeah, just call 4, and now they're slowed down. And I don't know. Like, I mean, elves, I don't know if that's necessarily competitive, like a tier, top tier deck. But like,
no, but it always will smoke you. It will never show up on Goldfish.
Yeah,
and then it will smoke you.
But yeah, I'm talking like a blue-red aggro. I'm talking about the storms. I'm talking about the Boros aggro, like the Amulet Titan, those decks.
Well, if let's actually go over to Goldfish and look at the top. What they're saying is the top of the Modern meta, and I know we're going to see a bunch of prowess. Yeah, they call it Blitz.
Prowess decks.
Right, so we've got the Lava Dart decks. So what they're going to have to do, they're going to be so screwed because, yes, they can't play hardly anything except for Manamorphose, Expressive Iteration. Everything else, Wild Slash, Vapor Snag, Opt, Mutagenic Growth, Lightning Bolt, Lava Dart, gets shut off.
Yep.
So
which is clutch to the deck, because if you can't flash back a Lava Dart and put a 1/1 counter on your Stormwing entity and pump up all your prowess shit, but if you can't do it efficiently, there's no sense in.
No. I think this just forces them to put and they're already running a couple of Braids, but maybe they go up to 4 Braids in the sideboard.
Yep.
Because humans as Sanctum Pellet, no, we can't rely on.
I feel like if you're bringing in removal for Sanctum Pellet, that's the point. Like, you know what I mean? That's exactly the point, and why I think it pushes it over the top. How many of those fringe cards in humans are people like, oh yeah, dude, that's the one to worry about? No, fucking none of them. Like they're just like,
they're all
Meddling Mage, get that one, get his Dork, or get his,
Thalia.
Shut off his, exactly, get his Thalia, like shut off his ETB triggers or something. Like, None. No one worries about the fringe cards. If they start thinking about like, oh, I got to bring something in from the sideboard for Prelate, that's exactly my point. Like, it's now a thing that you have to think about that as a legitimate threat in the deck that you can't deal with.
Yeah. The other thing specifically against prowess and those kind of decks, they'll play through a chalice because they just want the prowess triggers. They'll cast it and let it get countered.
Yep.
Prelate says it can't be cast.
Right.
So, and I appreciate Tech4 saying at the same time that he agrees with you, but in my instance, if they're braiding my Sanctum Pellet, they're not taking out my vial.
Yep.
The thing that they might bring in for vial, which again, I tell people all the time, God damn it. Know your hotkeys. That's what I tell everybody all the time. Know your hotkeys. Have a real professional production, but don't bring in a braid just for Aether Vial. A braid kills all the creatures too. A braid's a bad example. Don't bring in Destructive Revelry or some other shatter effect just for Aether Vial. It's not worth it. It's 4 cards in my deck. I may never see one, and you're going to have 4 dead cards in your deck post-board. What were you saying, Mike?
No, that's fine. I was just making fun of you for the audio listeners that don't know that you just messed your hotkeys up. Brad tried to be so epic and look into the camera there, and then he missed his hotkey and it went to the intro screen. He's like, listen here, guys. Intro screen.
100% agree with Braid. I am a Braid.
Oh, man. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. No, so I'm a little worried about that in Modern. I'm not gonna lie. Especially whereas I have a deck in mind, which I'm sure we'll get to. It's gonna be the deck that I run, and I just hope I never see you at a tournament. Like,
so do I just can I pick 0?
Yeah, you can pick 0, and they can't cast things for 0.
And they can't
any number. Yep.
Well, so that's interesting because when you go to cast it, like. Talk me through engineered explosives.
Yep.
Can you cast it?
I cannot cast it on the number that you've called.
So you can't play it for 0.
Right.
But you can play
if you called 0 with Sanctum Pellet, I could not cast it for 0, but I could cast it for 1.
Right, because as usual, X on the stack is whatever you paid.
Correct.
Unless you're copying it.
Correct. Yep.
What a pain in the ass. The Magic rules, man, are such a pain in the ass. Actually, the card that you were super excited about that we found out last week. So last week, after we finished the cast, we go downstairs. We find out more information about everything that we talked about last week. And we realize they spoiled another card from Modern Horizons 2. That is epic.
Yep.
Epic. And start dreaming about it. And realizing that mana costs specifically are important.
Yeah. Yeah, mana costs are extremely important. Mana values, as they're now called, are super important. Yeah, there's a new card. I'm sure you guys have heard all about it. The Urzas Saga in in Modern now. It's going to be in the new set, Modern Horizons 2. This card is busted, man. I can't see a realm in which this is not busted and banworthy.
Urzas Saga is a set of magic cards. No. Now, Urzas Saga is a saga, which is an enchantment. But wait, Urzas Saga is a set, it's an enchantment that's a saga, and it's a land?
The funny thing is, I got to say this. One of the funniest things I ever saw in a trade binder was this guy had his whole page. He had this whole page of cards that were just weird. I asked him after looking through, I got to like the final page of his binder, and I was like, why are these cards in your binder? Like, they were ridiculous. Like, just so bad or odd cards. Like, he had Visions, like the card called Visions. He had all of these cards that were, the card name was named after an actual Magic set. Oh. So like, there's other ones too, like Apocalypse, Like, you know, you had all of those cards.
Which is a set and a card.
And a card. So it was kind of crazy. I instantly thought of that kid as soon as this came out. I was like, you've now got an Urzas Saga card for your page in your binder, which is kind of crazy. I wonder if that's a thing with these guys, with Wizards, people that create cards, if they're just like, we want to make every set into a card too. I wonder if that's something they're actively thinking about. And if so, how much time do they have on their hands over there?
So I want to point out we have Sam Picard in the chat. Captain Picard is very excited. He and I spoke last week. We played a few games of Commander, and he came up with a new deck that he wanted to build.
Ooh, for Modern?
For EDH.
Ooh.
So he said he's sleeving that up, and I think he said something about being excited for Modern. But talk to me about Urzas Saga. So this enchantment land, Urzas Saga, which strangely isn't legendary.
This is probably the most busted card I've ever seen in my life. Like, probably hands down. Yeah.
More busted than Yogswell?
Dude, it's so bad. Like this, I mean, it's not bad. It's extremely good, but I'm exaggerating, of course. But at the same time, think of this: since when has there ever been a tutor in Magic the Gathering that not only grabs something that can grab something of higher mana value than the card that was used to get it, right? Like grab and not put into your hand, not put on the top of your library, but put into play. Like some of the most busted tutors that they'll likely never, print into Standard or Modern ever have been 1 or 2 mana that can so efficiently do that. And they can get them onto the top of your library or your hand. And those cards are extremely valuable and extremely useful. Now, granted, the situation, the scope is a bit smaller, but it doesn't matter. It never matters with tutors. It literally never matters. It gets something from your library for 0 mana, uncounterable tutor, grabs something from your library and puts it into play. Remember, we always have to look at cards for how busted they can actually be. And that, sir, is very, very busted. Like, it's a 0 mana tutor that just not only tutors something, it literally uncounterably puts it into play.
I know that some Amulet Titan players are excited about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a ton of players.
Also, what is that deck we haven't seen in a hot minute? Lantern Control players are talking about this.
Oh, yeah. Stupid.
Like, you can't counter my Lantern.
It's so bad. Dude, I mean, it literally fits into every deck that has ever been miserable to play against. Like, I mean, seriously, this is what I mean. Like, I think this is a kind of a ban-worthy card because and granted, don't get me wrong, I ain't going to talk shit. I don't want it to be banned because I have plenty of busted decks I want to put it in. You know what I mean? I want to play this busted card. But think about it. Think of every miserable deck that you've ever played against. And this probably fits into it.
I love you, Tech 4. This dies to Tail's End, which stops the triggered ability, and Landy. Man, you heard it here first. Buy your land destruction. No.
Wow, yeah.
What are you going to do with this card? That's what I want to know.
Oh, man, there's a ton of stuff. I feel like I fall into that area of Magic players that has been speculating about what could possibly be done to this. There's one big thing that I want to do with this card, and that is absolutely jam and slam this thing into Dice Factory. Like, I think this card right here, I will tell you, in that deck, the sole reason you mulligan so many times is because you need one of two things. You need something to jam counters on your 0-drop mana rocks, or you need a mana rock, a 0-drop mana rock. This is both. Like, this is both of them. You want something to slam counters on your mana rocks? Go grab Surge Node with it. The 1-drop thing that comes in with 6 charge counters. You need a mana rock? That's fine. It'll bring that in too. Like, and then, you likely kept a core tapper hand or something. Like, and you just instantly, it comes into play, you start slamming counters on it. Like, that is probably the most busted deck I think this card could be in.
And if you're short on threats, you can literally make a threat.
Yeah, it's literally so. Like, that was something that's one of the win conditions of Dice Factory is they just make a Karn token.
Yeah.
And they just beat you with it. It's like, you know, they do a whole bunch of shit. Maybe some of them take some extra turns and just beat you with it. And it's like, if they start controlling you, if they shut down artifacts, if they, you know, someone lands a Stony Silence, well, this thing can still activate. It can still do this and still give you, just like Karn can.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yep. It's crazy, man.
You going to play any way to replay this? Or is this just a 4 of in that deck?
Tech Force says it won't work. It won't fit into big mana decks where it sacks itself. Will be insane in Lantern and Dice Factory. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you're not putting this in Tron. I would agree with that.
Definitely not putting it in Tron because you're not really.
I mean, to get an expedition map?
Yeah, right.
The other thing that is really cool about this is if you're doing something with other fast mana, this might be great. But what do I want to say? Or if you can replay, you know, if you're playing a Crucible of Worlds kind of deck where you can keep replaying it from the graveyard. We talked about this last week when we first saw this card. We got super excited thinking that we haven't even described the card. We're just assuming that everybody knows what it does.
Yeah. We should do that. And then we have something we want to talk about this card. And I want to throw it out there to you guys. And we'll pose it as a question because we might have to talk this through, Brad and I, to understand so that one of us understands it. Right? But we'll throw it out there as a question. Let's read down through the card first. So here it is. It's called Urzas Saga. It's an enchantment land. Welcome to Magic the Gathering. And then it's, so it's one of those sagas. Like when it comes into play, it does something. Like you put a saga thing on it. I know this is really, you guys know what I'm talking about. Saga thing 1. It gains add a mana. So it turns into a land. Like it gains the ability to add mana.
Important to note, sagas are triggered abilities. So when Tech Force is talking about stifling, you can stifle that ability. So this comes in, triggers to put a counter on it. Somebody can stifle that ability and it doesn't tap for mana.
Until next turn when it puts its first counter on.
Until the turn when it puts its first counter.
Yeah.
Continue. What happens for the second mode? So
the second one, it comes down and it gains another ability. It gains the Karn ability. You can pay 2 and tap it and put a colorless artifact creature token with, +1/+1 for each artifact you control into play. So it puts a little construct into play, it gets bumped by all your artifacts, starts growing huge. So that's the second one. But then on the third turn, this is where it gets stupid. You sack it, right? Search your library for an artifact card and pay attention to how this is phrased. This will be what the question is about. Search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Here's the question. Can Urzas Saga, on its ultimate, pull in Lotus Bloom? Can Urzas Saga tutor up Lotus Bloom? What do you guys think?
It tutor up Darksteel Citadel?
Can it tutor up Darksteel Citadel?
These are questions we're posing to the chat.
Yeah, let us know what you think. And I will tell you, it's obvious. I've kind of mentioned it. I'm not sure if I agree because I guess I would have to, I don't know. Like, I guess I'd just have to see the rule. I could see it possibly being the case. I would just want to see a rule that said this. Artifact lands, or if something doesn't have a mana cost, the mana cost is null and not 0.
Correct. That is the distinction.
Yep.
This specifically lists a mana cost of 0 or a mana cost of 1.
Yep.
It is not 1 or less, because 1 or less would include 0, right? But if it said 1 or less, you'd be getting null cost cards.
Right. which makes sense. And they've made an important distinction. That's the thing here too, that, it could be, here's the other thing too, because this is what part of me thinks here is that they made that distinction between the 0 and 1 to save characters.
They didn't. Gavin Verhey said, and again, not that we can trust Twitter entirely.
Yeah.
But Gavin Verhey did say on Twitter that they did this specifically because they didn't want people to be able to get an early Lotus Bloom.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Good. Well, because that was something we were worried about when they spoiled this last week. I was like, so this is in every fucking ad nauseum deck ever.
Yeah.
Like, that's so stupid.
Now, if this could replace itself even with Darksteel Citadel, where maybe you get some value out of it being an enchantment, maybe you make a construct, and on the way out you get a Darksteel Citadel or an Ancient Den or something like that in other formats, is too good to replace itself. What are they saying?
So they're just talking about it does specify a CMC, a mana value or CMC. So I don't know. I guess I don't debate that. I'm not debating that. Like, I know it does specify one. I just want to see the rule that says an artifact land is not a 0 mana cost artifact.
Right. Well, there's no mana value printed on the card.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the hiccup. Right. When you look at Lotus Bloom or Mox Tantalite or
0 equals none.
Well, no, because if there's nothing up in the top right of the card, there's no mana value.
I mean, I think it probably could be right. I think that probably could be the case. I can see a world in which it is, but I'm just a rule guy. I just want to see it. Like, I don't want to roll to a tournament or, something and not know this. Like, I want to know for a fact that, like, cards that don't have a mana cost are null. Like, what is the mana value? I understand it doesn't have a mana cost, but what is the mana value? 0? Or is it null? And if there's null, this is the first time I've ever heard of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always been 0.
Yeah.
Like,
well, right. And that lets you get through stuff with, like, As Foretold, where you can cast Restore Balance that doesn't have a mana cost.
right.
But that always says number of counters or less. Like As Foretold says, add a counter to it, and then you can cast a card with CMC equal to the number of counters or less. That includes things that don't have a CMC printed on them.
Yeah. And I guess mathematically, if you think about it like this, if that is the case, in somewhere in the rule set, it says, that's all I needed to say, is that cards without mana costs have a null value and that it's not 0. Because if it's null, then it's different. Like, mathematically, calling out 0 and 1 is not a null set of, you know what I mean,
Data.
of numbers. Like, it's legit 1 or 2 values that you have in there.
I work in Access now too, so I know when it says null.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a different term.
It's a different term than 0.
Well, and that's the breakthrough for quantum computing. Kind of like, it's not just 1 or 0, but it can be null or both. It can be values in between 1 and 0.
Yep. Mana. Tech 4 is mentioning mana value and mana cost. Is there a distinction? Hold on.
Oh, maybe that is the distinction. This says mana cost of 0 or 1, not that it has the value of 0.
Search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost, with mana cost.
Yeah.
For an artifact card with mana cost.
Oh, it doesn't
0.
even say converted mana cost.
Oh, wow. So maybe we're both right.
Cost.
Maybe we're both right. Yeah. A null card has a mana value of 0 still. Yeah. That was my big gripe with it. I guess maybe we just need to read the fucking card. It doesn't say mana value like the rest of the cards do in this set. Yeah. That's the big confusing thing, I think, about this new terminology. Mana value versus the converted mana cost. Now they actually still have mana cost. That's a thing. You know what I mean? Like, mana cost is still a thing.
So I'm messing with Mike. One of the beautiful things for those of you that are watching us on YouTube is that with the 2-camera setup, I can switch to Mike's camera and pick my nose or pantomime some obscene gestures.
Next time he does that, though, I'm just going to sneakily, like, just go over and be like, oh, yeah, fuck you, Brad. And just switch the camera right over to him. We're going to nail this. We're having fun with this camera setup. But, yeah, so I guess that's the thing. I guess now that Tech 4 pointed that out, thank you, actually. That kind of is... That makes me feel more at ease. And because the big gripe that I had with that was that it wasn't that I didn't see what they were trying to do. It's just that for the entire history of Magic, I've understood that cards without mana cost have a converted mana cost of 0.
Right. So this distinction of cost versus converted.
So I guess that's the thing. That's something I guess we're going to have to get used to, is this new terminology between, and there is a distinction now between mana value and mana cost. And if that is the case, if that truly, they're clearly using 2 different words in this set, 2 different terms. So mana cost must mean you have to, this is a cost that must be paid to play the spell. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and if it doesn't have a cost, it can't be played. And that is a rule.
All right. So before we get too far along, there's 2 more things that I want to talk about. One is, and we mentioned it earlier, a return to sanctioned paper in-play Magic in the United States is coming at the end of the month. Number 1, I think that's awesome. I had something else I was going to say about that, and it just slipped my mind. Oh, part of the cards that we saw last week, we saw a old bordered foil promo, Fabled Passage.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I think last week I made some jackass comment like, oh, it's a buy a box promo for Modern Horizons 2 or whatever. Actually, what it is, and this is really cool, is that WotC realizes, hey, we've kind of boned LGSs this year. LGSs got screwed by the pandemic. Then they got screwed by us doing everything through secret layers.
Yeah.
We're going to throw the stores a bone. We're going to ship them 100 of these promos. And if you spend $50 in your local game store in June, they can give you one of these promos.
No friggin' way.
Yeah.
Just no matter what, no matter what you're buying $50 for, they can give you. So if you're buying Magic cards for $50,
I think that's the idea. Is if you buy $50 in Magic product, you can get. And we had a bunch of laughs in the shop. Like, well, okay, so if Modern Horizons 2 is $250 a box, can I get a playset of promos? No, it's.
Per purchase, yeah.
Well, I think it's per customer. I think that part might slowly be up to your LGS.
So that could open the door for very strategic buying. Then, honestly, if that is the case, like if you guys are trying to manipulate the way it works out there, okay, this is how I would do it. I would not buy a box. Like I know that sounds weird, but I just wouldn't. I would wait for people to crack the box, drop the card prices, take the same $250. I'd actually just take $200 because it's exactly how much I would need to get a play set of these Fabled Passages.
But you can't do that if it's one per customer.
So you have 3 of your friends or family members
each spend $50.
Yep, and you just say, "Look, go in there and get XYZ," and you know exactly the price is going to come out to $50. They're going to get themselves a Fabled Passage. Bam, there you go. Now, market manipulation, guys.
It's certainly not outside the realm of possibility. I have done this before when WotC did the Worlds promo last year, and they said, hey, we're going to give a promo Crucible of Worlds to everybody that goes and plays in a standard tournament at an LGS on the day that they hold the World's tournament. I was like, hell yeah, I'll drive whatever it is, 2.5 hours to a store to get that sweet ass Crucible of Worlds promo.
That is cool.
So, I mean, I'm thinking about there's at least 3 shops that I can think of that I could drive to.
Yeah.
And spend $50 and come out with a play set of.
That's true too. You just got to hit up different shops, so you don't even need to.
Right? And
Yeah.
then you're actually doing what WotC wants, which is support local game stores.
Right.
I mean,
Damn.
I'm just putting it out there. If I can spend $200 at my shop and get a playset, I would do that. I guess I'm going to have to spread the love.
Do it up, man. I feel like that's legit.
Easiest prize of my life, says Tech4. Those Crucible of Worlds promos, which are beautiful. I think there was like 7 people that registered for the tournament.
Yep. That's awesome. That's perfect. I showed up to a GP once and got a foiled Grizzlebrand, and I felt a foiled Batterskull, and I felt pretty good about it. I was like, oh, that's cool. So, I think this is a good segue into my Snap This Up while we're talking about these crazy cards and these crazy.
Well, and talking about going back to playing Paper Magic.
Oh, 100%. And I think this really hinges on that, like on everything returning, people going back to LGSs and shit. First of all, I like what you said before we started casting, and that is a good strategy right now is don't
sell anything.
Don't sell anything until like a week or two from now. You know what I mean? Like don't just let the prices go. Just hold and wait for the prices to go up because they're going to.
Drawn. Just hold.
Yep. I mean that's what I seriously think there's some merit in that, but I also think there's some cards to really think about getting before they get out of control. And me is just one of those old school vintage, always got an eye on the vintage stuff.
Pain in the ass.
And some of the crazy shit you can do in Commander with this. Like, so Urzas Saga is coming out, right? We've got a card that can tutor a 1-mana artifact into play. There's also other cards out there, many of which have been printed within the last couple of years that effectively stifle ETB effects. They effectively just say, those things don't happen. I think you guys can see where I'm going with this. And this card is right up my alley because it is a reserved list card. I think you should look into at least getting one copy of Phyrexian Dreadnought for your commander deck for this cool card that's popping out. This is going to be probably... Like, it's not going to be I shouldn't say this. It could very well be on the same level as the Dark Depths combo with all of the weird ways they make that happen. A lot of times with Thespian Stage, but before that they had Vexing Mage. They I feel like it's definitely going to be one of those cards, but Phyrexian Dreadnought will almost likely be the most busted thing that you could stifle that could bring out very early. So in case you're not familiar with it, Phyrexian Dreadnought is, how do you not know what this is if you play Magic the Gathering?
I'm not old man Magic.
Look, this was the creature back in the day, okay? Like, this is amazing. Like, this card was the biggest creature ever printed at the time. It was such a big deal. There's a reason it's on the reserved list, is because it was such a huge deal for its time. This is what it does. So I'm gonna tell you, it's obviously an artifact for 1 mana, because I'm talking about Urzas Saga with it, right? You tutor this with Urzas Saga.
Yep.
Here's what you get for 1 mana, right? You get a 12/12. Like, I really don't care what else I could say. Like, you know what I mean? That's instant value right there. I don't care if it says...
You're still talking about a 2.5 card combo.
Yep, yeah. Well, hear me out, right? There's, like I said, I think I'll get there.
Okay.
So you get a 12/12 for 1 mana. It has trample. Like, it does have a drawback when it comes into play. And it says, when it comes into play, sacrifice any number of creatures with total power 12 or more, or sacrifice this dude. So that's always the big trigger that people are trying to stifle or what have you. There have also been, and here's the other side of this coin, there have also been decks that don't care about doing that. They just want it in the grave. Like, You know what I mean? Viral's decks. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe you just have Viral's as your commander, and you're just like, yeah, I just wish I could get that Dreadnought in the graveyard as soon as possible. Like, you know what I mean? And that's great. Bam. Urzas Saga always goes and gets my dreadnought, and it's uncounterable. And, whenever I feel like I can do it, I can just have my commander on the board and smash somebody for a ridiculous... Like, you could one-shot people with commander damage at that point. Like, you just put 12 1/1 counters on your Virals and do that with another creature, too. Bump them up to 21 and just swing in. And it's like, there's that. And then, of course, there's the effects that stifle it and stop ETB effects. Like, there's so many. It's not just the stifling, I don't think. And, but it could be that. It could be other combos like Virals. And it also has the ear to the streets. Anything else that could come out that could possibly bust that.
Well, and it's no surprise to anybody that has listened to this cast for 71 episodes now that it's a reserve list card. It's going to have a floor of value even if it doesn't get broken by Urzas Saga.
Right. Even if it doesn't, you're still not getting it cheaper. But God forbid that it does, you're never going to afford it at what it is right now.
Yeah.
God forbid it does.
If it actually shows up in a legacy deck.
What can we get these for right now? These phyrexian dreadnoughts? There's 2 versions of them, by the way. They printed a judge foil of this before they did away with the reprinting exception, where it used to be that you could reprint a reserved list card if it was in some special premium set or something, but that's not the case anymore.
Let's take a look. I'm trying to be cognizant of the listeners, so let's see. There is the Mirage printing and the Judge promo.
So that Judge promo version that I was telling you about is $278. Well,
No.
$200.
Let's see, but that's the market price, but let's see. $278 is the lowest listed.
Okay, cool.
So these have already jumped.
Yep. So those, all right. This is even more of a reason to do this then. So go back to that original search where you have both of them there. So yeah, wow, look at this. This is already how much it's spiking up. People are seeing what's going on. As low as, it's a $124 card. You can get him as low as $55. This is a big sign right here. Okay, I just want to take it from someone who I buy a lot of reserved list cards, a lot. This is a sign that there's a lot of attention on this card. When the values of websites get fucked up when they try to calculate the value of it.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what this card is actually worth, and all of their algorithms, there's so few of them out there, they're getting fucked up. It's the value of this card is $124, but you can get him as low as $55. Something's messed up. There's a lot of attention. The ones that it's getting calculated on are getting bought up, and then you're being left with just some random shit that it has to try to figure out the price of. I would say for sure, I would get yourself a copy of this if you can at $60. And you can, now that I see this, I'm getting sick to my stomach. I need to go buy my last couple for $60 a piece. I feel because they'll probably never be that low again. There's always going to be some format that Phyrexian Dreadnought and Urzas Saga are legal in. Always. And because of that, Dreadnought's never going to be cheap again.
So I will give a snap this up that is very broad. Again, like I said earlier, if I were going for the simplest snap this up this week, it is snap up your collection and clutch them in your arms like valuable children that you don't want to give away.
That's right.
Because in 2 months, everything in Modern is going to be more desirable than it was a month ago.
Agreed.
If I had to nail that down to a card, thinking about Counterspell being legal, all of those Counterspell decks might only run 3 Counterspells, but I bet most of them run 4 Snapcaster Mage.
Or there's just so many variants of blue decks that run at least one.
One of the things that I will point out, let's see, I just want to look at the trajectory here of Snapcaster on. Screw off.
Are you going to look at a price chart of this? Brad's bringing up a price chart of
Snapcaster Mange.
Mange. What a mangy Snapcaster you've got there.
And so I'm specifically bringing up the...
Oh, wow.
I'm specifically bringing up the most recent printing because especially for just general Modern play, look at this. From March, the Snapcaster has dallied with $70. Right now it's down to $63. If people are playing blue decks next month and for the next 6 months, Snapcaster is an easy $80 card again.
Yeah.
And that's a 30% increase. Going from 60 to 80. That's better than the stocks. That's better than my stonks.
Oh yeah, sure is. Better than mine too these days.
And we have done the thing where we lost the whee.
Hey, it's back. Sweet. Yeah, man. I like that. I think there's a lot of options here. I would really just take a good hard look at, think about the decks you want to run when Modern opens back up and ask yourself, do I have all the cards that I need? And if not, get the cheap ones while they're cheap right now. Like if you go on eBay or TCG Player and just look at what you're looking at and see what the prices are. Try to get them cheap. If you can't, like if you see some ridiculous card, like fucking Drown in the Lock is like $3 now, $3, $4, $5.
Yeah.
Like just wait. Like just play another deck. Like these prices, I think, will come back down.
I don't know. I mean, when we talked about this 3 months ago, I think is when we were talking about, hey, vaccines are rolling out. We might be back playing paper Magic as early as June.
Yeah, and we were talking about that then. We were like, dude, get your cards now. Like, don't wait.
Talking about sealed Ikoria and sealed Throne of Eldraine because Brazen Borrower and Bone Crusher Giant are seeing play all the way back to Legacy now.
Yeah, stupid.
I think you're right. If there's a playable Modern card that you're interested in and it's at a reasonable price right now, get it because it may be stupid in a month or two. And then just looking at, like you said, Urzas Saga. What are the cards that people are going to play in that deck? You mentioned Mystic Forge before we cast it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a card that you might be able to get for $5 right now.
It will be in the decks that use that card for damn sure. Like not all decks that have Urzas Saga in them will be Mystic Forge decks, but all Mystic Forge decks will have Urzas Saga in them.
Yes, causation and correlation. And we could. I hate that we're wrapping up the cast just as we're talking about this stuff, but like again, we talked maybe 8 months about them being WotC. Really looking at white as a color and increasing the power level of white. And immediately I'm thinking, well, if we've got Sanctum Pellet coming into Modern, that helps white in Modern. We've got the Elite Guard Mage, the Palavito Domidarosa World Championship card that just came into Modern. We've got Strict Proctor, which you were saying could potentially stifle the Phyrexian Dreadnought trigger is a white card. Like, we're seeing the fruition of that, and I only bring that up. I'm not, like, patting ourselves on the back for saying white cards are going to be cool, but to say if WotC's making white cards more powerful, well, that means white decks will be played more. So what goes in white decks down the line?
Yeah.
Is it Thalias? Is it Stoneforge Mystics?
Just going to say that.
Again, Blue Mage's got Counterspell. I'm immediately thinking, okay, hit me up with some Jaces. Hit me up with some Snapcasters. Hit me up with, we can't play Mystic Sanctuary anymore. And nobody really likes Celestial Colonnade, but maybe Celestial Colonnade's dirt cheap right now, and people are still going to play one of them.
Yep, probably.
They're going to play one.
I would say Celestial Colonnade's dirt cheap right now.
And this is a matter of...
At least it was last week. Who knows what happened this week with
looking at the fringes of what does this suggest?
Yep.
And I like that when you're talking about Urzas Saga, which is... Okay, that's a card that's coming out. You can pre-order them. You're going to get boned. But what are the cards that are going to go in the Urzas Saga deck?
Right.
Dude, this was fun.
This was awesome, dude. Thanks for joining us this week, guys. This has been an amazing spoiling season. And I can't, I know, and it's just getting started. It's been an amazing season so far. Can't wait until things start opening back up. I can't wait to see some people down at the LGS. I've got so many ideas, so many things to talk about, to brew, and to shoot the stew with you guys. So I look forward to seeing you next week. In weeks coming, maybe we can bounce some of these ideas off of each other and iron something out to take to these awesome in-person tournaments that are coming up.
Oh, we say it all the time. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you like to listen to your podcast versus watch our ugly mugs, you can do that on whatever version of a podcast player you like. You can hit us up on Twitter. Our handles are on the screen, but it's at Cooley for Mike. That's at COOOLEY.
3 O's.
And I am rocking at the SnapCast Pod on the Twitters. And I actually really would love to interact with some of the listeners that don't necessarily get to watch us live. Part of that is our inconsistent stream schedule. I'm about to leave here and go play some music at a bar. You guys have an awesome night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care, guys. Peace.